Pei Amid Beis. Bakol Ma'arvin Mishtatven. You could use anything to make an Eruv. We're talking about any type of food. We'll see shortly that anything of what category. So it's a basha. You can use any food to make an Eruv and to make a Shituf. Chutz min hamayim min hamelach, except for water and for salt. Can't use those. The simple concept here is that the Eruv and the Shituf, they put your mind onto that location. It says, that's my house, because my food is there. But water and salt, the person's mind doesn't, he doesn't think about it, that's my real location. Now, Yushalmi tells us something else. Yushalmi says that it's a min klala. Water because of the mabel, and the salt because of Light's wife. Time relevant. So it's a min klala. You can't use that for a native. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shua says kikar hu eruv. Bread, a loaf of bread is an eruv. Afilu mafasa bu prusa ein ma'arvin ba. Even if you make a large loaf, but you cut it or you broke it, it's not a whole loaf. Even if it's a mafasa, sa is 144 eggs. This is a huge loaf of bread, Uncle Moshe size. So it's not acceptable because it was cut. Has to be whole. We'll see what the issue is. It doesn't really have to do with an Eruv. It has to do with something else. It's a secondary issue. And kikar ki isser v'ushalim arvim, a little small roll, a bilkala, that's going to be acceptable, even if it's the size of an isser. Isser is a coin. A small roll the size of a coin. But if it's whole, you can use it as an Eruv. Now, again, we learned yesterday that you need 18. If there's 18 people, you need 2 meals. If there's less than that, then you need a gregorus for each person. So what do you do if you have the small rolls? So you have a bunch of small rolls. That would be the idea. The Gemara asked Tanina Chadazimna. This Mishnah we had already once. It says Bakol ma'arvin u'mishtatven chutz min hamayim min hamelach. We had it on Chavav. And here we were talking about Erev Tchumen. That was the beginning of this. The Masechta was Erev Tchumen. Bakol, it was the beginning of a parak. Bakol ma'arvin u'mishtatven chutz min hamayim min hamelach. So what are you telling me again? Bakol ma'arvin u'mishtatven. There was a problem here with Rashi. I don't know if you remember. Rashi says Bakol ma'arvin. Rashi says Eruvi chatzeris on the Mishnah and Daf Chavav, which we said was a little bit of an issue because it doesn't stem with the Gemara here. So the Gemara says like this: Amar Rabba lafukim mid Rabbi Yeshua. Our Mishnah is very important. It's coming to tell us that that Rabbi Eliezer doesn't accept Rabbi Yeshua's view. In other words, if I only would have had the Mishnah by Erev Tchumen, I would say, yeah, by Erev Tchumen he holds Bakal Ma'arvin u'mishtatven. But by Erev Chatzeris not. By Erev Chatzeris he would say that you need to use bread. Comes along our Mishnah to tell us that even by Erev Chatzeris. Why? The Amar that Rabbi Yeshua holds, Kikar en midachin alai. Kamash Malan Bakal, if it tells us Bakal, that even by Erev Chatzeris, you can use anything. Now, why should I have thought that? And what would the difference be? He said you could use anything by Erev Tchumen, so why can't I use it by Erev Chatzeris? So there's a svara that's going to be thrown in a little bit later. It's going to go like this: that because you have more than one person that's contributing, so people start to look at what everyone else brought. Like these parties that people bring. Say, oh, what did they bring? So if someone brings something that's not, it's not acceptable in other people's eyes, they start to, it creates eva, creates a machlekes. The hatred. Oh, they brought this. They didn't even bring. If they bring a half a loaf of bread, Rabbi Shua holds it needs to be a whole loaf of bread. So when it comes to Erev Chatzeris, I could have thought that maybe Rabbi Eliezer would have agreed to Rabbi Yeshua that there's other people that are contributing to the Erev. Everyone needs to do the same thing. Kamash Malan, that nevertheless he holds that Bakol Ma'arvin and Mishtatvim by Erev Chatzeris. By Erev Tchumen, I never would have thought of this, and therefore by Erev Tchumen, what it says in the first Mishnah, doesn't tell me what I need to know for here. Eisve Abaya. Abaya is a question. Bakol Ma'arvin Eruv Chatzeris. Could use anything to make Eruv Chatzeris. We're going to see in a moment that Bakol is actually referring to bread, any bread. Bakol Mishtatvim Shitufim Mavais. You could use anything to make the joining of the alleyway. We're going to see that means any type of food. It's a little bit, that Bakol is different. anything what? Okay, V'layamar la'arif v'pas immediately tells us that when it says that you need to use bread, that's ela b'chatz. Layamar la'arif v'pas ela b'chatz b'lvad. You can only use bread by a courtyard. Eruv chatzeres. Man shamat la'adam pas in midyachin alai. Who's this opinion that tells us this? That you can only use bread, which means that I go back to that bakol ma'arvin, and it means any type of bread. Who's the one that holds it? You can use any type of bread. So, Lay Rabbi Yeshua, doesn't say Rabbi Yeshua, Ktani Bakal. It says Bakal. So what are you telling me? That Bakal Ma'arvin Mishtatvin is Lafuke Rabbi Yeshua. Maybe Bakal Ma'arvin Mishtatvin is Rabbi Yeshua. It's the same opinion. I don't know how, I'm not sure what Abaya is expecting from Chutz min hamayim min hamelach. That doesn't seem to fit. And then why do I have Rabbi Yeshua Aimer right afterwards? There's a problem here with Abaya's kasha. Abaya's trying to say that you're telling me that there's a chiddush of bakol ma'arv and that you can use anything other than bread. Maybe bakol only means bread, like we find another brisa that bakol means bread. Yeah, I understand that, but the continuation of the Mishnah has a problem. I'm not sure. I didn't go through this Tosfos, so. Elam Rabba Bar Bachana Lafukim Midi Rabbi Shua da Meshlemi and Prusalai. Kamash Malan Bakal. It's not the way we thought originally. We thought that Bakal meant any type of food. You're right, Abaya. Bakal actually means bread, but it means any type of bread, even if it's not a whole loaf of bread. And Rabbi Yeshua holds that you need to have a whole loaf of bread. What's the reason? Prusa my time below. What's the reason why you can't use a broken loaf of bread? I'm Rabbi Yosi ben Shal. I'm a Rebbe Mishum Eva. There's a problem of Eva. Eva means that it's going to create conflict between people. If everyone doesn't give the same amount, then it's going to create machlaikas in the small community. We have the term Eva when it comes to giving tzedakah. Where do we have it? That's Darkei Shalom. Darkei Shalom and Eva are very closely related. I'm not sure the difference, but basically, it promotes peace when everyone does the same. In this case, Amalei Ravacha Breder Rava Ravashi. Ravacha Breder Rava says to Ravashi, Irvu Kulam Beprusis Mahu. Okay, we've introduced a problem, Eva, that if one person gives less than the other people, it's going to create conflict. Let's say everyone gives broken chalas. So there's no conflict. This is what everyone's going to give. So Amalei, Ravashi responds to this, Shami Yachsa Davilikul Kulang. That we can't control. Maybe some people are going to start to give whole chalas. And then some people will give not whole chalas, broken chalas. It's going to come back to being a problem, to being Eva. So originally we say everyone has to give whole chalas and not broken. And that is not going to adjust. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yechanan ben Shal, they could have done the, what do they have, the chasna guidelines, and no one can give no one to do any more, only a one-piece band or whatever. They could have said, oh, you can only give a prusa, but people don't follow them. So it's hard. So they said they did it the other way. You have to give a whole. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Shal nitla himena kadei chalasa kadei dimua ma'arvin leba. Rabbi Yochanan ben Shal, and on the side that says the Gersa Sarash is Rabbi Yonasan ben Shal says that let's say you had a whole challah, but you had to remove a little bit because you had to take challah. You have to take challah off a whole challah. You take a piece off. So it's supposed to be either if it's a dough or it's a whole loaf. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe it's the original din challah, not like today. Okay. It sounds like from the Gemara, it sounds like that we're actually removing a piece of the challah in order to give it to the kayan. Ukadei dimua. And also we're taking off a certain amount of it because truma got mixed in. And the way it works is that truma could be batal in chulin. It could be batal. Not 1 in 60, but 1 in 100. Why 1 in 100? I guess it's a chumrah. Maybe because that's the original, no, truma is tremi may, it's 2 out of 100. But truma, it's batal 1 in 100, 1 in 100 of chulin. The only concern is that you have to take, there's 2 parts to truma. One is that it's mammon kayan, and the other one is that it's isser. The isser aspect becomes batal 1 in 100. But the fact that it belongs to the kayan, you still need to remove. You need to remove a little bit. So when you remove a little bit, it's that's fixing it. That's not ruining it. That's fixing it. So what we're doing here is when you're taking off challah and when you're taking off dimua, you're removing the part of the truma that got mixed in. That's fixing it. That's not making it into a prusa. That's considered that it's improving it. The Gemara says,
Rabbi.
Yeah.
Same concept of the bris, right?
Right.
Take off a piece and we finish the job.
Right. Very good. Very good. So Hatanya kadei dimua ma'arvin leba kadei chalasa ein ma'arvin leba. 1 second. Why are you saying that this is improving it? We said that dimua, you're right, but chalasa, if you take off the challah, that's a problem. It's too much. The Gemara says like kasha, habachalas nachtem, habachalas balabayas. It depends who. There's 2 measurements of challah. Today we just do a pinch. We just do like a kazayas or something. We pull it up and throw it in tinfoil and put it in the freezer until you, whatever, burn it all together with the chametz. I don't know, however the wives do it. But there used to be a shear for challah that was 1 out of 48 if you were a baker, and 1 out of 24 if you were a homeowner. So the difference over here, how I can have 2 brises, one that says that if you take off the challah, it's still good. One if it says if I take off the challah, it's not good. It depends. If you took it off as a baker, it's still good. If you took it off as a homeowner, that's too much. That's 24. That's the Tanan, shear challah echad miyasrim v'arba. The shear of challah is 1/24. Isa la'atzmai v'isa l'mishter b'nai echad miyasrim v'arba. Someone makes a dough for himself, for his own house. He makes it for a party for his son's wedding. That's 1 out of 24. Nachdaim shueisa limker b'shuk. But a baker that's selling it, his shear challah is less. And also a woman that has a home business. She sells the bread in the marketplace. So that's echad mi'arba mishmeina. That's 1 out of 48, so it's less. Okay, so that's the way that we can answer this contradiction about challah. Taking the challah off, if it's, you can still use it for an eruv. Amar Rav Chisda, tafra b'kesa ma'arvin leba. Let's say you sewed it together, the challah together was broken, it's a problem. So you sewed it together with a toothpick. Doesn't mean sewed, you stuck it in. So you attached it, you made it look whole. So it says it's still good. V'atanya ema arvin leba, but it also says that it's not good. We have a brisa that says no, and we have Rav Chisda that says yes. So it says lekasha had yadia tifra, had leyadia tifra. It depends if you can tell you can tell if it's broken. I'm not sure if this applies to Lechem Mishnah. It's very interesting. At Lechem Mishnah, we try to have a whole loaf. It should be a shleima, even though I think there's a netziv, the Hemek Shaila, Hemek Davar, that he says that two separate dinim. Lechem Mishnah is not the din in shleima. Shleima is the din in the bracha. Lechem Mishnah is just two pieces. Whereas if you don't have two, here would the question be: if you have one loaf of bread on Shabbos, should you cut it in half and then you have two, and then you have Lechem Mishnah? But you don't have a shleima now, but you have Lechem Mishnah. So I think he recommended cutting it in half, because the Lechem Mishnah is a stronger din. I think I'm not sure. Okay. Amar Reb Zeira Amar Shmuel Ma'arvim bepas Eiruz bepas Deichen. Reb Zeira says in the name of Shmuel that you can make an Eruv, you can use rice bread and millet bread. Now, both of those are, one of them is mezainis and one is shahakal. But neither of them are hamaitzi. So Amar Marukva, nevertheless, in other words, even though it's not hamaitzi, but you can still use it for an eruv. Amar Marukva, l'didim efarshli minid Marshmuel. Marukva says that it was explained to me what Marshmuel said. Bepas eiruz ma'arvin pas deichen ein ma'arvin. It's only pas eiruz, only this one eiruz, which is mezainas, as opposed to pas deichen, which is shahakal. Whenever you take flour that's not from the 5 grains, so any of the bean flours or any of that, it becomes shahakal. Now, the reason why in Chabad the rice is not mezainas is because we have a confusion if our rice is eirez, which sounds like rice, or it's deichen. We don't know which one it is. We learned that taisvis and brachas. So based on that, we don't say mezainas either. But whatever the case is, if it would be eirez, then it would be really mezainas. So then Shmuel would accept that, according to Marukva. But he won't accept deichen. Basically, could be like the gluten-free flours that you can get. So those would be under this category. They use other grains, not grains, other whatever, vegetables, legumes, that they make into flour. Amar Reb Chia bar Avin Amar Rav Ma'arvin bepas hadashim. Reb Chia bar Avin says in the name of Rav that you can use lentils. You make a bean flour, and you can make pas, make bread, and then you can use that bread for the eruv. Eini, is that so? V'hida hava b'shnei demar Shmuel b'shadi leklavim v'layachla. There was this bread that was made, I guess it means in the years of Shmuel, and he threw it to the dogs, and even the dog didn't eat it. This is talking about the lentil bread. The Gemara says, no, that wasn't lentil. Lentil bread is good. You can use that. Other types of bread is not good. Take a look at this. The Ezekiel bread is not going to be very happy with this advertisement, unless there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? So let's see how this goes. The ksiv, the other bread, which bread isn't good? Quote the pasuk from Yechezkel. You should take the wheat and the barley and the beans and the lentils and the doichen and the spelt, and you should mix it all together and make it into bread. And the pasuk over there says that, you see, the prophets used to have to play out the they would have to model what the prophecy was. So it says, you should lay on your left side and do this, and take a brick and make the picture of Yerushalayim on it, and then lay siege to it, and don't eat any real food. Just, you should eat this bread that's not really bread, human food. Anyway, in the pasuk it says that you should eat this bread. It says lechem anashim leiseichel. Don't eat human food, human bread, and it gives him this Ezekiel bread to eat. So Rav Papa says, no, that wasn't the issue over there. The issue over there wasn't this spread. The issue was Sliya b'tzleya sadam hava. It was cooked on burning human excrement, which that was the bad part. It wasn't the mixture of the grains. The ksiv he beglali tzaya sadam ta'agena leinean should roast it in front of the people on tzaya sadam and human excrement. Mai v'ugas sa'irim teichlena. What does the pasuk mean? Should eat barley bread. Amrav Chisda l'shiurim doesn't mean barley. It means you should eat it in small amounts, just like someone that has a famine. If he has to ration, divide up the bread into portions because he doesn't have a lot. So that's how he should eat this bread. Rav Papa Amar arevasa arevas irim v'lik arevas chitim. The way that you made it, you should make it the way that barley bread looks, not like the way wheat bread looks, which wasn't as designed, braided and everything. It was just like a clump. That's the way they did the barley bread. It was ugly. So that's what the Navi was told to do. Yecheskel was told to do, was to make it like that. Okay. Nice, the new Mishnah. It's the bottom of Pei Aleph. Nice another mal lechenveni v'lenachtem kadesh yiskel erev div Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer says that let's say you have in your courtyard you have a storekeeper and you also have a baker, or one or the other, or both. So you can go to either of them, and you can give them a ma. Ma is a coin. I forget its value. Is ma 32 prutas, I think. It's 32 prutas, small coin, and you can you give him the money, and you say that he should, when they come to collect the eruv, he should give them bread from you as well. So you pay for it, and he gives the bread to those people. Chum say you never acquired the bread, so there's a problem here. You see the complication here is like this. You don't need to acquire the bread. We learned before that we can have one person be mezakeh the bread. In other words, gift it to you through someone else acquiring it. He hands it to someone else. He says, acquire it on behalf of all of the people in the Mavi, and you don't need to pay. And it works as a gift. And over here, all of a sudden, according to the Chachamim, this person paid for it, and it gets worse. Now you can't do it. Why? Because the fact that this person paid for it means that he thinks that his money is acquiring the bread. And the truth is that money doesn't acquire the bread. So now when you try to gift it to him through this, it's not going to work because his intention was on the money, and the money doesn't work. This arrangement messes it up. If you would have done nothing, it would have been better. The sages agreed that anyone else that didn't do this action, that didn't give the money to the storekeeper and all of that, or could mean not the storekeeper, could be that if the person wasn't a storekeeper, if it was just a neighbor, and you didn't tell him here's money and all of that, you just said, or maybe you told him here's money, but if it's not a storekeeper, the money that you're giving him is not a transaction money. You're giving it to him to say, here's money for you to be zoichet to me. In other words, I'm not expecting the money to be the purchase. I'm just giving you the money so that you should accomplish that the Erev should work for me. The other person is just becoming a shliach to make it, as opposed to that this is a purchase. What comes out is that if the money doesn't work, the only way that you're going, back in the first case where the chenveni was there, where the storekeeper was there, the money doesn't work. The only thing that he can do is he can do a new Erev for you and ignore the money. Now for that, he needs your das, he needs your intention. Now we didn't say that before then, he needs your intention. We said that you can do it without your knowledge. All of a sudden over here, he needs your intention. if we read the next line of the Mishnah, it would clarify for us a lot. But if you stop right here, then you have to say that he specifically didn't want it to go without his money, and his money doesn't work. That's how we would have to read it. Now, the truth is that if he would have walked into the store, he handed them the money or whatever, and then he takes the loaf of bread and he says, here, I know they're going to come around. Leave this bread here for me and put it into the basket when they come around. Then it would have been fine because he did a mashicha or a hagba. He was kind of the bread. But the money is not a real transaction. What we're going to learn is that when you go into a store and you put the money down, putting the money down, even if the storekeeper takes the money, but the acquisition of the item is only when you actually take the item. It's not by paying the money. It's the taking of the item that acquires it. And the reason for that is, we're going to say later from Rabbi Yochanan, is that if it's just paying the money and the storekeeper still keeps the item, then he has no interest in protecting that item. Let's say a fire, God forbid, breaks out. You paid for it. So when he's going to run out of the store, he's going to take all of his items and he's going to leave the item that you paid for still in the store. When you come back, you say, where is it? He'll say, oh, I'm sorry. Your wheat got burnt in the attic. And he's not going to protect it. So because of that, the sages said that money doesn't work. Money is not a kinyan, because when you just use money, the item still stays by the seller's location and he doesn't care for it. So what is the kinyan? When you actually take the item. When you take the item, that's the kinyan. Now you owe the money, but the kinyan is the taking of the item. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda says, where is there an issue over here with making an Eruv, and he can't do it without your intention? That's only Beiruvei Tchumen. That's only if the Eruv is to be able to walk out of the city an extra 2,000 amas in one direction. So then it's only midaita. Why? Because the Eruv is positive for you. It makes it that you can walk in one direction an extra 2,000 amas. That's excellent. The problem is that it knocks off the other direction at all entirely. You can't even walk out of the city to that side because your location is on the north side of the city. So you can't walk out to the south at all. So there is it's to your detriment at the same time. Because Aval Beiruvi Chatzeres, Ma'arvin Ladaita, Ushlei Ladaita. By Beiruvi Chatzeres, there's only benefit. What loss do you have if everyone can carry in the courtyard and you can as well? There's no loss. It's only benefit. So Rabbi Yehuda says that I don't need your intention to make an Erev Chatzeres. I only need your intention when it comes to, in other words, I can make an Erev Chatzeres without you knowing about it, but I can't make an Erev Tchumen for you without you knowing about it. Lefi, because you can gift someone something even if he's not there, but you can't do anything to his detriment unless he's there. My time with Rabbi Lezer. What was the reason for Rabbi Lezer that when he goes into the store, he gives the money, it's as if he acquires the food, and that when the food goes into the Erev, it's as if he had given the Erev. Gemara asks, Halei Mashach. But he didn't take the food. He didn't take the bread. It never became his. Rav Nachman Baravua. Rav Nachman says the name of his father, Rabba Baravua. So Rabbi Lezer Kadal Prakim Bashana. Rabbi Lezer holds that it's like the Four Seasons hotel. It's like the Four Seasons. The special din about these four seasons of the year. The four seasons are Erev Yom Tov, Erev Pesach, Erev Shavuos, Erev Rosh Hashanah, and Erev Shmini Atzeres, Hoshana Rabbah. At that time, it's a special Indian to have meat, to prepare the meat. Prepare the meat for Pesach, for Shavuos. I don't know why the first day of Sukkot isn't in there. And also Erev Yom Kippur is the fifth one, but it says over here, it just quotes the four. Now, who are those? Who are those people?
Naphtali. Naphtali. Do you know who these four people are?
Four Seasons.
Ah, famous band. Sorry.
Okay. So so what happens over here is that every individual wants to get meat. Problem is that you have to shech the cow to get the meat, and maybe you only want a slice of meat. To shech the whole cow when one person wants meat, that's a big deal. So the sheikhet can always refuse you and say, "I'm not shechting my cow just because you're coming to me with $20 and say you want a little bit of meat. My cow cost $1,000. I don't have the other purchases here to make it worth it for me." However, there's 4 seasons of the year where the sheikhet is obligated to shech the cow, even though there's only one person that's coming to buy it. It's because of this special halachas of Yom Tov that people should have meat. He has to shecht, and then he has to find the sellers later, the purchasers later. Now, but what happens is there's also another side to this. The person that's purchasing the meat, even if he's only giving a small amount of money, but if something happens to the meat, then he loses it, even though he was never mashach. So there's 2 sides. The sheikhet has to shech during this time. It's a huge loss for him. But at the same time, if there's a loss of the meat, that one individual that came that wanted to buy, that's causing this shechita to take place, he loses his money, even though he never acquired the meat. So it goes like this. Rabbi Lezer makes it kedal prakim bashana that the money itself is an acquisition during those times. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. Bedal prakim ela mashchitin as a tabach. In these 4 seasons, you force the butcher to shecht bal karcha against his will, even if afilu shar shave elef dinar, even if the shar is worth 1,000. Vein leikech el dinar echad, and the purchaser is only giving 1 dinar. Kaifen eise lishchait, we force him to shecht lefikach because of this. In mace, if the animal dies, mace the lekech loses. The Gemara asks, mace the lekeach, the loss of this, the purchaser loses his money, halei mashach, but he never got his item. He never took the meat. He never took the animal. Rav Huna says that no, he did take it. The Gemara is going to get rid of this answer in a minute. But meanwhile, this is our first answer. If that's the case, then let's continue reading. Continue reading the Mishnah. It says, the rest of the year not. In other words, the rest of the year, the tabach, the sheikhet, can always say, I'm not shechting it, I don't have enough people to buy it. Therefore, in mace, if the animal dies, mace l'meicher, it's the meicher's loss. Why is it the meicher's loss? Why is it the seller's loss? Hamashach. The lekeach already had acquired the animal, according to Rav Huna's teretz. Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak says, no, we're not dealing with the lekeach, with the purchaser acquiring the animal. We're talking about that he just paid for it. Talking about that he gifted it to him through giving it to someone else to acquire for the purchaser. Very interesting Gemara. Gemara says, like we said, that you're allowed to gift something to someone else, but you can't do anything to someone else that's to his detriment unless the person has agreement to that. You can give him a gift, but you can't give him a debt. So is giving him the meat a gift or a debt? So it says it depends when. If it's before Yom Tov, then it's a gift. If it's the rest of the year, it's a debt, because it's to his detriment that he went and he spent that money when it wasn't necessary, just extra meat for a Wednesday to have meat. That's not considered a gift. That's spending money. That's there's a detriment there. But for Yom Tov to spend the money to have meat, that's already a zachin. That's what we consider it. So therefore, he gifted it to him, and now we have a distinction between those seasons and the rest of the year. One teretz doesn't help us, but that's one teretz. Rav Ilam, Rav Yechanan, here's the teretz that we were looking for. So all of this was just an introduction. Our main point is this line over here. He says, name of Rav Yechanan, Medal Prakemelu, Hamidu Chacham Divreim al Divrei Torah. The sages put their words on the Din Torah. In other words, they didn't institute anything new. They rely on the old law. What's the old law? Rabbi Yechanan says, Dvar Torah ma'is kainas. According to the Torah, money is really an acquisition. So why did they say that you have to pull it? You have to take the item to acquire it? There's a gzeira that the seller may tell the purchaser, I'm so sorry, there was a fire and everything got burnt. Why did it get burnt? Because the seller saved all of his own items, but he left the purchaser's items there to get burnt. Why? They weren't his. So that would be the common, if giving the money and not taking the item would be the final sale, so then people would lose. So therefore we said, no, giving the money is not the final sale until you take the item. Once you take the item, that's the final sale. So the what's going on over here is that in this Mishnah, Rebbe Lezer holds that when it comes to an Eruv, the money is the sale, just like the money is the sale by those seasons. Because really, Minat Torah, money does work as a kinyan. It's just the sages took it away because they didn't want this problem of the seller not taking care of the item. So the Hamidu Devreim al Din Torah, Hamidu Devreim al Divrei Torah. Over here, they say that the sale can work with just the money, and therefore the bread is already yours. And when he gives the bread to the Eruv, it works. That's the explanation for Rebbe Lezer. Okay. Now we say, the sages agree, the sages that argue on Rebbe Lezer, that say that it doesn't work if someone gives money to a storekeeper and tell him to participate in the Eruv for him, doesn't work. But they agree that if it's not a storekeeper, it does work. Man Shakal Adam, who is, if it's not the storekeeper? Everyone else. Amarav Balabayas. Rav says it's a Balabayas, a regular homeowner. Shmuel Balabayas. Shmuel also says it. That's only by a storekeeper that's expecting this to be a purchase. However, by a homeowner, then it's not expecting this to be a purchase. What you're doing is you're just telling that he should be a shliach for you to acquire for you and all of that. When in the Mishnah, when is it a problem? We say in the Mishnah, you can't use money to go to a storekeeper and give him the money and say that he should just give the bread and you never took the bread. That's the opinion of the Chachamim that argue in Rebbe Lezer. That's only if you're giving money. Avol keli kaina. But if you give him an item, if you're doing bartering, so then that's going to work. Because a keli is called a kinyan suda. Money, when you give the money, you still need to take the item. But when you give a keli, that's like an exchange. You give a utensil. So you take my this and I'll take that, even if you don't take it yet. But once he takes that first item, once the seller takes the item, so it's already an exchange. Look, you took my item. It's now the other thing automatically becomes mine. So then it's going to work, because when he's going to put the bread in the basket for the Eruv, that bread was your bread. Also, the words that he uses are important. If he says the cheli, acquire for me, then he messes it all up, because the money doesn't acquire, according to the sages. But if he says make an Eruv for me, then he's expecting him to do whatever that requires, which could mean that it could be zeichet for him in whatever way. He's just making him a shliach to do that.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Question. You said money. The question is money acquire, but a keli would acquire. Is a Bitcoin considered money? Because it's not real money. It represents money. It's just like stock. If you give someone stock, they don't really own it till they sell it and get money. I mean, so
I think
is money mamish money,
Yeah, we have to wait for Hazav. the fourth parak above Metzia to get that.
Guess I'm still staying in Daf Yomi.
We have to wait for that. It's complicated because even our money isn't representing the silver certificates or whatever, all of that stuff. What is a check? What is a dollar bill?
I don't know. It's always in the mail. All right, sir. Don't want to waste time.
Okay, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Bamed Dvarim Amurim. Rabbi Yehuda says, when do we say this? We're going to be introduced here to something, a very interesting thing, which I believe we had before, maybe in Brachos. Do we have it? I'm not sure. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda. Don't get confused with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai. He's one of the students of Rabbi Akiva. He's the one that said that when does all of this not work? If you're giving money, but you didn't actually take the item, that's only by Erev Tchumen. But when it comes to Erev Chatzeres, Zachan La'adam Shlei B'fanav, that's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai. Amar Rav Yehuda, that's an Amayra, a student of Rav, a student of Shmuel, the head of the yeshiva in Pumbedisa, is Rav Yehuda Bar Yecheskel. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai, Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. That makes a distinction between Eiruvin Tchumen, which is to a person's detriment because he loses the south side of the city to walk, versus Eiruvin Chatzeres, which he only has benefit. Not only that, anywhere where we have Rabbi Yehuda in Eiruvin, halacha kamaisei. We always pass him like Rabbi Yehuda by Eiruvin. Amar lei Rav Chana Bagdasa Rav Yehuda. This one is Baghdad. Rav Chana from Bagdasa says to Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel afilu b'mavish nitel karesa v'lecha. The Shmuel even paskin like Rav Yehuda in the case where the mavi of the lechi came down on Shabbos. Rav Yehuda had a very lenient opinion that once the mavi is the alleyway that has a post at the front of it and a cross beam that goes across the top. It says once Shabbos comes in and the post was intact and the crossbeam was intact, then even if it collapses on Shabbos, it's still acceptable because when Shabbos came in, it was good. Does Shmuel accept that that's the halacha? Because he says halacha is Rabbi Yehuda Be'er, even in that case, which that seems to be a big chiddush, a leniency. Amalei be'Eiruvin amarti lach v'lei b'mechitzas. He said about Eiruvin, not about the mechitzas. This may be the source for the Rambam, Yassi, to divide. He's going to put in Hilchas Shabbos, he's going to put all the laws of the Rishuyos, Rishus Rabbim, Rishus Yachid, and what's considered a mechitza. Then he's going to put in Hilchas Eiruvin, the laws about contributing the food and all of that in Hilchas Eiruvin. So there's a distinction here between the mechitzas, Hilchas Shabbos, and Eiruvin, which is contributing the food. So it's very interesting. We have concepts of Eiruvin and Masechta Shabbos as well. We have concepts of Shabbos and Masechta Eiruvin. The fact that which Masechta it's in doesn't really tell me that. But here we're seeing a distinction that there's the laws of Shabbos, the laws of Mechitzas, of what creates a Rishus, is different than the laws of Eiruvin. At least regarding if we pass like Rabbi Yehuda. Amalei Ravacha Brei the Rava Ravashi. Ravacha, the son of Rava, says to Ravash, second time we have him today. Same pair. Halacha Mechlal de Pligi. If you say that's the halacha, that the halacha is like him, obviously, there's others that are arguing on Rabbi Yehuda. When we learned the Mishnah, I said it depends. We could stop right here and try to explain it, or we can explain it with Rabbi Yehuda. That means there were two ways of reading the Mishnah. We could say, Bamed Devarim Amurim, when did the sages say this? That's Rabbi Yehuda is explaining what the sages said. The other way of reading it is, the sages said they didn't. Comes on Rabbi Yehuda and says, I'll agree with them in this case. It means he's arguing with them. How do you do that? So we have, which way do you look at it? So we have a statement. Vam Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Kol makim sh'amar Rabbi Yehuda emasayu b'ameh. whenever Rabbi Yehuda uses those terms, Masai, when is this? Or Bamed Varmamur, when is this said in the Mishnah Seinu, in a Mishnah? He's explaining their words. He's not arguing. How could you say that Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda? That means that they're arguing. But I have a statement from Yeshua ben Levi that tells me that he's not arguing. The Gemara says, what do you want to tell me? He's not arguing. I have clearly another Mishnah that says that if more people enter into a courtyard on Shabbos that didn't participate in the Eruv originally, that you can add food and you have to let them know. It was during the week they came in, not on Shabbos. But during the week they came in, you have to add food for them and you have to let them know. Let them know. Why do you have to let them know? According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not a problem. Oh, they argue with Rabbi Yehuda. So you see clearly they argue on Rabbi Yehuda. What are you telling me? That they don't argue on Rabbi Yehuda? I have a different Mishnah that shows me that there's argue on Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says, we had this answer before. I said over there, it's not necessarily a zchus. When is it considered a zchus? Just to allow you to carry. But over here, it's a courtyard that goes between two mavais. And over here, the Eruv isn't really necessary. And in a way, it could be that it makes it worse if something goes wrong with half the Eruv, with half of it, and it messes up the other side also. And really, it could have carried anyway. So this extra part of the Eruv is not really necessary. So over there, we say that you have to let them know. So it still could be that in the case of Eiruvin, they're not arguing. So why did you say that halacha k'maisai? Then it sounds like they're arguing. You had to tell me that the halacha is like it means that. And Rav Shizvi says that this is a proof, but Rav Shizvi says that the other people argue on Rabbi Yehuda. Ella gavra karamis. The problem over here is that you're telling me that Rabbi Shua ben Levi says that whenever Rabbi Yehuda says Bameh or Emasai, he's explaining. And you have to tell me, and you're going to tell me that that's what everyone else holds. It's not true. Marsav or pligi, Marsav or pligi. There's a machlekes in how to learn when Rabbi Yehuda says Emasai Bameh. We'll go a little further. Gufa, we learned before. Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Kol Makom Shem Rabbi Yehuda Emasai Bameh Mishtaseinu Ein Alafarish Divrei Chachamim. Whenever, this is a rule when you learn Mishnayos. Whenever Rabbi Yehuda says, when did the sages say this? Or whenever Rabbi Yehuda says, in what case did the sages say this? That's always explaining the words of the sages. He's not arguing on them. The Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says, Emasai is lefarish, Bameh is lachlik. Depends which term he used. Emasai, when does he say this? That's explaining the sages. He's not arguing. But if it's Bameh Dvar Mamurim, then he's arguing. The Gemara says, V'emasai lefarish. When it says Emasai, when is it said? He's explaining. L'farishu v'atanan, but we have a Mishnah. Ve'elu ein psulim. The following people are pasul le'edas. They're invalid to give testimony. They're not good witnesses. Mesachik b'kuvya. People that, usually it's translated as gambling. The kuvya is rummy cube. Rummy is the throw. Cube is a dice, is a cube. Kuvya is the cube. So people that gamble. Umalva beribis, or people that take loans with interest. Mafricha yainim, it's another type of gambling. They do these bird races. V'seichrei shvius, or people that do business on Shemitah. You're not supposed to do business. You can let it grow without selling it, but this person is selling it. Rabbi Yehuda Emasai, where Rabbi Yehuda says, when do we say this? Man shein lo yumnas, that he doesn't have any other business. Elahi, only that forbidden business. What does he do for a living? He gambles. Now, if there's a guy that has a business, but he gambles once in a while, he makes bets here and there, or he does other things. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that's not pasaledus. According to him, the reason why gambling is pasaledus is because you're not keeping up society. It's not a good. You're not doing anything constructive. Shaloihi harize kosher. But if he has another business, then he's kosher leidos. Yeah, he has this bad habit, but otherwise everything is good. V'tani alav brisa. We have a brisa that says Chum maimer bein shein leyamnas elahi bein sheish leyamnas shaloihi harize apostle. So we see that the sages argue, and they say they don't care, even if he has another business. But if he does gambling, so he's pasaleidus. And how was this said? Amar Rav Yehuda Eimasai. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, Eimasai is lefarish. That means he's not arguing with him. But we have a brisa that says clearly that he is arguing with him. Doesn't fit. We're discussing the word Eimasai. It doesn't mean he's arguing. It doesn't mean he's explaining. It has to be that he's arguing. And Rabbi Yochanan doesn't say that. Rabbi Yochanan says it means explaining. The Gemara answers, either Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Tarfani. The truth is that wasn't really Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. That was Rabbi Yehuda saying in the name of Rabbi Tarfon, and over there it's different. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Tarfon Leilam Ein Echad Me'am Nazir L'Fishein Nazir Sel Lahafli. Over there it's talking about two people that are sitting and someone walks by, and they make a bet. One person says he's a Nazir. Another one says he's not a Nazir, and they make a bet. It says if he's a Nazir, then I'll become a Nazir. I'm so sure he's not. Another one says if he's not a Nazir, I'm so sure he is. I'll become a Nazir. So they make this gamble concerning this fellow, if he's a Nazir or not. So Rabbi Yehuda said, "Name of Tarfon Einechem Nazir Fishein Nazir Sel Lahafli." You have to say Naziris. You have to express it. Yafli. It has to be expressed. Over here, it wasn't expressed. It was all a question. So, not as a suffix. Alma, given the Mesafkele Naziri Loihu, Le Mishaben Nafshe. If a person has a doubt, then he doesn't really commit. So, over here also, when it comes to making a gamble, you don't know if you won or lost. At least you think you won, when that's why you took the bet. But there still is a doubt there, and because of that doubt, you don't really agree to pay that money. So therefore, when the other person comes along and takes it, it's considered like he's taking it without consent. So that's makes him pasul. Okay.